but you have a tremendous story. I mean, you are truly an underdog in so many ways. But before we get into that, what made you decide to drop down and be a sidearm pitcher?
Yeah, good question. So we're going to go back all the way when I was in high school. So my senior year of high school, I had only topped out at 72, 73 miles per hour from as an over the top guy. I was also fairly large human being. I was same height I am now, but 280 pounds. I played high school football as a nose tackle. So that was, it's hard to move around and throw off the mound when you're 280, unless you're CC Sabathia. And that's one of a couple guys. It's only one, a couple guys that could do it. But anyway, I was already committed to Barstow Community College, which was the first school I'm at, or I was at. And I wasn't playing very much at all for my high school. And they flat out told me, it's like, listen, like, you just don't throw hard enough to really allow us to give you innings. And I was like, you know what? I gotta change that. So I started hitting the weight room pretty hard. I started watching what I eat. I actually came across a driveline baseball. I started to buy those plyo balls and everything. And it's actually what led me here today. Eventually I gained velocity like over time. By my sophomore year of junior college, I had topped at like 87, 88 at that point, as still as an over the top guy. And then about a week after my junior college career ended, I was in the ER room getting, I don't even know the exact term that it was that I got, but basically there was an infection growing on my tailbone. It's a lot of gross stuff, I'll admit that. But bottom line is it eventually messed up my back big time. And I actually learned throughout that process that I was actually born with an extra vertebrae in my back. So with that being said, my old pitching delivery was very linear. So I would basically be up and down versus rotational. And I figured, as I was rehabbing, I was just like, my back still hurts throwing over the top. You know what? Maybe I'll try to drop down because swinging the bat doesn't hurt at all. So I figured dropping down the arm slot allows me to be rotational. And well, here I am today.
That's amazing. And I have to ask you, because we all love Coach Freeborn and Sidearm. I got to give a plug here. Sidearm Nation, if you can see that there. Yeah, Sidearm Nation. Yes. Did that have a role? Like you seeing Sidearm Nation, or how did you get linked up with Coach Freeborn?
Sidearm Nation actually played a huge role. So I think I was just like randomly just searching through Instagram one day, and I came across Sidearm Nation, and I was like, okay, maybe this is a possibility to change my career around. And then one guy, he actually pitches for the Mariners now, Penn Murphy. Mm-hmm. I saw the way he throws the ball, and I'm just like, okay, he's very rotational. It's very rotational. It doesn't seem like he's putting a lot of strain on his body. He's just nice and comfortable with that arm motion. And I was just like, maybe I should drop down. And eventually I dropped down, was able to compete at Upper Iowa University. That was the previous college I was at. Yes, I do have a post on there. You kind of have to scroll back. It's been a minute, but yeah. So that's how I came across Sidearm Nation.
That's amazing. Well, I told Freeborn, I'll tell you this too. Like it's so amazing to see people all over the world dropping down.
Yeah,
and we're all in this community. I mean, I'm throwing for fun, but just to be able to attempt, and I'm getting guys from Korea and Japan contacting me, complimenting me, and I'm like, that means a lot. These are guys that are, throwing hard down under. What does it mean to you to be part of a community that's all over the world doing that?
Well, it means a lot because I heard this crazy thing very recently that the sidearm pitchers are almost like as rare as knuckleballers, which I find that slightly, as a sidearmer, I find that slightly offensive, but it is true. There is a rare breed of us that are thrown down low, and it's awesome how tight we are.
Yeah. Well, there was one kid in Florida. We were down in Tallahassee, and he was working on a knuckleball from the almost Darren O'Day type spot, and I thought, man, if you could somehow get that down, who's going to hit you from there with that? That's quite a combo.
Yeah, who would want to catch you anyway, too? I wouldn't want to catch that.
Yeah, the batter doesn't want to see you, and the catcher doesn't want to catch it. Yeah, right, exactly. A lot of wild pitches or pass balls be going on. But no, it's just, to me, it's rewarding. You know, I didn't really get to play a lot of baseball. I played football and other stuff like that. But to be part of what seems like redeeming, you know, some of those years, you probably feel the same way, is pretty amazing. And you're only 20, what? How old are you, SJ?
I'm 23 right now.
You're only 23. Yeah, I mean, I got 10 years on you. So, you know, 10 years from now, where will you be? So tell people what you're doing now and what you're focused on and what your goals are. Where do you want to go?
All right, so I'm currently playing my last year of college baseball at North Park University. It's a small Division III college out here in Chicago. And well, how I got here is a funny story, but what I plan to do after this year, because this is my last year of baseball, I'm currently a 6 year, as my college journey is just a crazy one for itself. But anyway, so what I plan on doing after this year is trying to apply for jobs to be like a pitching coach somewhere, or quote unquote like a throwing coach, because that is like where my journey as a side armor came in, because I pretty much had to teach myself how to do it. Like I didn't really receive any guidance. I just did it based off learning how mechanics go in general. And it landed me an internship at this great place in Arizona called Push Performance. A lot of well-known athletes train there, like Logan Webb, one of them, Ryan Burr, Shelby Miller is another one. Just to name a few guys who trained there, and I was fortunate enough to meet and actually able to give a little bit of tips to. But anyway, so what led me there? Well, I used to train there at the facility in Colorado, but we'll get back to that. So, but that's what I want to do, just somewhere in that field, specifically be a pitching coordinator for a MLB organization.
That's awesome. Well, you know, one of the things that a lot of pitchers, and I'll just say athletes in general, you know, they have those times where they have to overcome, you know, the hardest, the darkest times.
Mm-hmm.
When would you say the darkest time for you was in your playing career, and how did you overcome it?
That's a good question, because there's been a lot of those. You know, I actually wrote a paper today just about how, for one of my classes, just how my career, you know, it's been up and down. That's why I think I should succeed in coaching. But I would say the biggest one, without a doubt, has been this past year. You know, I was in my 5th year at Upper Iowa. I started my master's program. You know, things were going great. Led the team in ERA in the fall, or at least I was told. But yeah, then like I get back from winter break, and well, first of all, my mom's house nearly burned down in when I was home, due to the Marshall fire that happened in Boulder, Colorado. Like I think we were like one out of 200 homes out of, I'd like to say, 1,200 that didn't even have any damage, which was just absurd. But pretty much had to go back to school right away. And I come from a single mom home. So with that being said, you know, it was just a very dark time. And then I get back, and all of a sudden, you know, I get quarantined as well, and I miss a whole week of practice, and I have a bunch of off the field life going on that I'd rather not get into personally. But with that being said, you know, like baseball wasn't going very well, outside life wasn't going very well, so it was a dark time, and I actually ended up having to medically retire from baseball, because the baseball side just continued to get worse and worse. And that's I think, you know, it was the darkest time, but without a doubt, it's definitely brought the brightest light. It brought me here to Chicago. It brought me that internship I had mentioned, and yeah, that's really that.
I appreciate you sharing that, SJ, because, you know, 2 years ago, I had a really, really tough time mentally. And I don't think we as men talk about this stuff enough. And honestly, there is strength for you watching right now. There
Yeah.
is strength in acknowledging you're not okay. There is strength in saying, you know what, I need some help. I need somebody just to come in and encourage me. I need somebody who I could just vent to.
Yeah.
Holding it inside is the worst possible thing you can do.
Oh,
And
100%.
honestly, there's so many people who want to be there for you, but they just don't know. I think that's what breaks my heart, SJ, about suicide, is how many people are like, if I had known, if I had, you know, and quietly they go into the night. And I've had some friends that are no longer here because of suicide. And, you know, I'm just so thankful that this movement, and I know you're passionate about it too, but Underdogs saying we have each other's back. We're not on our own. What does that mean to you just in terms of the mental side of it and the emotional side?
Means the world because I mean, yeah, like you mentioned, mental health in just general, it's not really talked about quite a bit. And like I was brought up by my dad. My dad was full blood Native American, who like he refereed. He's actually the first Native American to ever referee in the AHL. Fun fact. But with that being said, pretty much being the only one in his race in that sport, he got a lot of negativity. He told me about like a couple times he was called, a redskin on the ice and all that. And, he never really talked about it. And, he told me like, oh yeah, as a man, you have to be tough. And, that brought me, it's holding it in is just not fun. It's, it's not good at all. And then, yeah, it's funny you mentioned how like my darkest time as well, because like I faced this twice, once in college, once in high school. Like, my dad ended up passing away when I was a junior in high school in the middle of baseball season. And then on top of that, a week prior, I actually found out I was 70% deaf in my left ear
Oh, oh.
that I had received from a car accident from a few years ago, from years prior. So talk about just like overcoming and everything like that. But without a doubt, like just being someone who has gone through it, because anyone could just say, like, oh, talk to somebody. It's like, well, someone who's experienced the hardships and actually went out and did it, I could personally recommend counseling to anyone and everyone.
Mhm. Absolutely. Well, one of the things that people don't understand, you get it, but a lot of people don't, is when you have to overcome a lot and you go through pain, you have so much more to give other people. I can't tell you how many people have messaged me on Instagram or whatever, and they said, because of what you're doing, like, I want to give baseball another chance. Or thank you for what you're doing. I'm like, I didn't even know that they're even watching some of the stuff I was putting out there. And that's when I was doing a lot of videos about mindset. But if you're not right up here, forget about working out, forget about eating right, forget about playing. Like, you got to get this right for everything else to come together. And that's why I try to do videos on mindset, because we've got to be thinking right. And then, of course, we are what we eat, we are what we drink, we are what we do. If we're
Right.
not moving, how many people are just sitting in their car, they're sitting at their office, they're sitting everywhere, but they're not moving. And that has a mental effect on people, and that's why depression sets in, and people, arthritis, and people literally start stiffening up. And it's really sad to see people acting older than they are. Well, let me ask you this. So we asked you the tough question. Let's ask you the fun question. What
All
was
right.
the greatest moment so far you've ever had on the baseball diamond?
Oh my gosh. There's actually quite a few to go back on. Honestly, for me, this is like very low and cliche, but so like I had mentioned, honestly, it's my sidearm debut, not gonna lie. But I would say because I had gone through a year and a half of injuries trying to like repattern the way I throw and everything. And, like it was just a living, excuse my language, but a living hell just to get back onto the baseball field. And next thing you know, I'm going into a game and I'm nervous as ever. I'm sitting there just like, you know what? You've done this before. Yes, it's been a while, but you've done this before. And in the 2 innings I pitched, I think I struck out like 5 guys,
Wow.
4 or 5 guys. And but honestly, like what got me very excited or what makes this such an impactful moment is how my teammates reacted. Like they were all in front of the dugout, they all screamed as loud as ever. And I was just standing there like, wow, like this means something. This means the world to me. And
Yeah.
that's something out like my boys in Iowa, like even though I'm no longer playing with them and I do have a little bit of a little bit of a salty taste in just this really just upper Iowa in general. I mean, the end of the day, those were my boys, and they had my back, and they wanted to see me succeed, and it was great to see that.
Oh my gosh, yeah, the camaraderie. And I love those moments of, I can remember my dad, we came over from Ireland. He didn't really understand baseball, and I think it was like middle school or something, and it was the bottom of the ninth, bases loaded, typical kind of like epic situation. I'm playing right field, and this guy hits a screaming line drive to center. We had a terrible center fielder who was scared of the ball. And I sprinted across to center field and just dove. I just said, whatever happens, I'm going all out. Caught the ball. And my dad goes, my son, he did something. He, he did something. He didn't understand the game at all or anything. But it was definitely an awesome moment from my dad, you know. But those sports moments, you're right, they'll stay with you for the rest of your life, you know. And that's what people are missing out on when they don't play sports. So SJ, what do you say to someone maybe in college, maybe in high school? They're struggling. They're trying to stay on the mound. They're trying to get back, and they're considering dropping down. What do you say to them?
I would just say, well, for number one starters, I mean, I've heard Freeborn talk about this podcast, and by the way, if you don't listen to the Sidearm Nation podcast, you're really missing out quite a bit. There's a lot of great stories, from a lot of great athletes, but for number one, you got to be 100% committed to it. You got to just sit here like, you know what, this is me. Because nowadays, like, and as someone who's teaching somebody to throw harder, yeah, velo does matter. But at the end of the day, it's like, if you know for a fact you can't compete with what you're using right now, feel free to drop down, and you got to be 100% committed to it. And I think that's like why I think personally I've succeeded and why others have succeeded. It's because they gave it everything they have. And so that's number one for starters. And two, like, thank God that we're doing this now. Actually, like, feel free to reach out to me. Like, I'm happy to watch anyone's mechanics, quite honestly, but reach out, use your resources. That's the biggest thing I can give.
Well, on that note then, SJ, what is the easiest way for people watching this later to get in contact?
So obviously you met me through social media and all that. My Instagram account, I have two of them. I have one, just my personal one that I take of like my friends and family and all that. And then there's my baseball one, in which I progress my own training, and as well as like as a future coach, I plan on using that platform for coaching. So feel free to DM me. That's honestly the easiest way.
Absolutely, it's fantastic, and I'll put all this information above in the video description. And one of the things, SJ, that we've talked about this offline. We want to have a movement, right? Like a movement of intentionally fighting for other underdogs in the world. And I want to see us do that together. I really believe we can. And I don't just mean with this show or nutrition, or I'm just talking about all of this. Like getting people together to throw. I mean, when I was with that lady in Lexington, South Carolina, I was throwing submarine basically with a softball, and she had never seen that before. And it was just so fun just to do it, and to tell her, look, you're 15, but you're a great 15-year-old player, and you've got a great story to tell. We're going to have a part 2 with her. She was adopted, went through a whole bunch of stuff herself. But I think it's really awesome to see the progression in people's lives. And what do you say to somebody who's watching this, SJ, and they're like, I just don't think I can compete. Like, I see these other people, they're all throwing so hard, and I don't have it. What do you say to them?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I mean, I was fortunate enough to face both aspects, and I still face them as a subby, as a submarine guy. Like when I threw over the top, I sat there. Like, honestly, I don't recommend people being a complete psycho on the mound, but I had to be in order to compete my butt off. Like, I was cussing whoever was in the box, just that kind of deal. I think, just without a doubt, just like, if you're mentally just sitting there, just like, all right, I'm the greatest player in the world, and I don't care who's in the box, I don't care where you're from. That's the mentality you gotta have. I mean, the worst case scenario is you fail, and people fail every day, and baseball is a game of failure. So
Yeah,
with that being said, just like kind of just have that mindset saying, screw it, I'm the best I'm the best in the world, and get after it.
absolutely. No, that's a great message. I mean, look at Max Scherzer. That guy's nuts. But look at his record. Look at how well he's done, and it doesn't seem to matter what age he is. He and Justin Verlander are blowing minds with how much they're making, and kind of a new precedent in baseball. And tell me if you agree with me on this. I challenged Coach Freeborn with this. So everyone is throwing 100 miles an hour now in the bullpen, or even starters. don't you think a case could be made that if you throw slower with like Greg Maddux type precision, that you'll totally throw these hitters off, especially if you come out of the bullpen late in the game? And that maybe, like you were saying earlier, they should just worry about getting their craft down and not worry so much about how fast they're throwing.
Well, that is a good question. And honestly, like at the end of the day, it's the hitters that actually have to end up hitting the ball. But I mean, it has been proven to be done. But unfortunately, nowadays we're living in an age where velo does matter. Like guys who are like 90 and 93 with sub 3 ERAs are getting released because they don't throw hard enough. And that is honestly just the tough reality. But like obviously it depends on your arm angle and depends on like what you can bring to the table. It's like, all right, you don't throw the hardest. All right. How is your off speed? Can you throw your off speed for strikes? All right. It really depends on who you are. It's really if you embrace who you are and let's see what you're working with, quite honestly.
Good. That's really good advice. It's kind of like having a balancing act of you want the velo to some degree, but you also, more importantly, want the control and
Yeah.
that's just adding more value as a starter or as a reliever. All right. So final question for you. This is probably the most important one.
All
How
right.
can underdogs watching this go, this guy's awesome. I want to get to know SJ more. I want to help him. How can other underdogs get behind you, SJ?
Good question. I mean, DM me and let's make a plan. Like, I mean, that's what you did. You just simply just said, I want to talk to you. Like, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to talk anytime.
That's awesome. Well, I'll tell you, it's nice when we meet people that are not arrogant. I have no time for arrogance. To me, it's sad when people, want to get to know somebody and they're putting up all this. I'm Mr. So and so. Who gives a care who you think you are? We're all in this life that's hard, and there's difficult times. But when we can be there for one another, we can be better because it's we, not me. We.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point of Underdogs Unite. It's plural. It's not
Yeah.
Eric the Underdog interviews, it's Underdogs Unite for a reason. And I wanted that to be the case. And I think we can help a lot of people, SJ, through this interview, through more that we'll do. We'll check in. This is part one. So
Yeah, let's do it.
see how things are going with your coaching and all that you're doing out there in Arizona. And thanks again for being on Underdogs Unite. And I wish you the best and thankful for the fact that we're going to work together. So thanks again, SJ.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And absolute pleasure to be on.
All right, everyone. Well, listen, join us again soon. We'll be having more guests on and just so appreciative of every underdog who's fighting to show it's not about the cards you were dealt. It's what you do with them. Have a great night.